Bob's been doing this for 50 plus years, and he's always open to new ideas, always. And that's what's cool. You know somebody has wisdom when they have all the experience, but they're still willing to say, yeah, let's try that. And in the back of their mind, maybe they're thinking, we already did that. I'm just going to let these people make the mistake. Or they're thinking, we already did that, but there's a new configuration. Let's see how it goes this time. Either way, you can't have new things happen in the sport. You can't evolve the sport if you don't have people thinking outside the box and you don't have a little bit of money behind it. And that's a catch-22 because, like I said, access and getting good equipment is becoming harder because it's more expensive. And I'm riding those coattails because I'm at a brand who's providing a lot of those toys for a bit of a premium. So it's a chicken or the egg thing, but we're pushing the envelope. And you can't push the envelope without a little bit of R&D dollars. And so I think, yeah, you're right. It's just a matter of what's the next thing? What's the next thing that's going to break the seal and get more people behind the boat?
Hello Waterski world and welcome back to the Waterski podcast. If this is the first time you listen to this, well, welcome to the Waterski podcast. This is Matteo your host, and the goal of this whole thing is to promote water skiing in all its forms through the people in the sport. If you have been following the podcast for a while, you might have noticed that the Ski Talk episodes essentially involve a guest telling their story into the sport, some of their achievements, downfalls, their journey, and then we just have a conversation. What I want to start doing now with Dog Time, which is a different sort of series within the Waterski podcast, is to either speak about water skiing or preferably bring some people in to speak about water skiing. Now, generally, these are going to be guests that have already been on the show. I still value to hear the story first whenever I have a new guest, but this gives me the opportunity to bring back some people and just chat it up about water skiing. So this episode 57, is with Marcus Brown, who I'm so glad that among the many things we happen to collaborate on, he decided to come back and join me for a little conversation about water skiing. Simple as that. Now, it did end up being a little bit more than just a little conversation. We went head first into a lot of different topics in water skiing, such as, the role of the Olympics and the Olympics dream in water skiing, possibly some of the roles that skiers have in promoting pro skiing. We talk about, what's exciting about skiing nowadays. We compare a couple of pro women in terms of their style and try to basically see what they do well, what they could do better, and we extended that work in a video format on the YouTube channel of the Flowpoint Method. So subscribe to that and make sure that you keep up with the updates there. We talked about all sorts, and I really also wanted to get Marcus's perspective on the work that he did with Jenny to put together the Flowpoint Method. Bunch of things we talk about. It's a long conversation, but I don't think you'll get bored much. I know that was one of the worries that Marcus had, but I truly believe that won't happen. Before we get into the groove of things, I just wanted to remind you that this episode of the Waterski podcast is brought to you by the Whisper Fin Pro. The Whisper Fin Pro is the latest product coming out of the hard work of Jay Pochente, also known as KJ, the man and pen behind the successful book Fin Whispering, Demystifying the Black Art of Waterski Tuning. You should get that book because it features me on the cover. Yeah, that's pretty cool. The Whisper Fin Pro is the second iteration of an already successful product, the Whisper Fin. This tool has been used by skiers of all levels to step up their game and reach new PBs, including pro water skier Elizabeth Montalban, one of the recent guests of this show. The Whisper Fin Pro maintains the same easy turns and acceleration as the original, but with more tail hold and consistency at maximum lean angles, like when you're scrambling through your hardest passes. I've said it before, I've been playing around with the Whisper Fin for a couple of years now, tried it on different skis, different testing sessions, and really, at the cost of repeating myself, the on-site turns on this thing are just like jaw-dropping. And also the other reason why I love this fin is that it's really easy to set up, even for someone who's maybe, just learning how to set up fins and bindings. So you can go on www.finwhispering.com and pre-order your Whisper Fin Pro today. And if you have family or friends who would like a Whisper Fin, the original one, you can use promo code TWSP, all caps, at checkout. And you can add as many original Whisper Fins as you like to your order for only $99 each while supplies last. Whisper Fin Pro. Yes, you can buy a better game. Now, let's just jump right into this conversation that Marcus and I had. I truly hope you'll enjoy it. And stick around for next week because let's say we have a special episode for everyone listening. Enjoy. What kind of bar is that?
I threw the wrapper. Hold on. It's called a Pro Bar.
A Pro Bar.
Maybe you've heard of it.
No, but I like the name.
Dude, official nutrition bar partner of the U.S. ski and snowboard team. Pro Bar. That sounds like an ad. Did I just do an ad for them?
Pretty much. I mean, snow ski US, snowboarding pretty solid. Like I'll get behind the fact that they're supporting the snowboarding.
Are you kidding me right now, bro?
Yeah, you guys are all right.
No snow ski?
You're all right. You're not,
Did you see the training runs yesterday from the downhill guys, the downhill boys?
No.
We had like two out of the three were on the podium in the training downhill run. So don't give me that.
Well, I mean, I don't follow. I just say things,
Yeah. Test 1 2.
Test.
What I was going to say was I had the guy that started this company. I reached out to him when I was in college when I first saw this bar, Pro Bar, and I was like, hey, I'm a pro skier. Didn't specify what type of skiing. Said I'm looking for sponsorship. His name was Art, I believe, and he would send me periodically boxes of bars, Pro Bar. I was sponsored by Pro Bar at the beginning. And then at one point he sent me an email. He's like, hey, we kind of grew a little bit. I have a committee now, a board, and things are going to be run a little differently. Sorry, can't send you bars anymore.
Did he find out you were a water skier by then?
Oh yeah, I think he did. He knew.
He knew. Huh.
Anyway, yep, Pro Bar.
So
what are we doing?
I don't know. We're just talking.
Just chilling.
Just chilling. I wanted to run something by you actually because I know we've had the conversation of the whole amateurs versus pro Olympics. Should we be in them? Are we gonna be in them? That kind of stuff. And one of the listeners sent me a podcast. Have you ever heard of the podcast called Blister?
Yeah, Blister podcast. Yeah.
So he sent me an interview of a pro snowboarder, and basically he was saying how he actually believes that in a way, the fact that snowboarding is at the Olympics is keeping them back, which I found super interesting, And his whole argument...
What's the takeaway? Why?
Well, his whole argument was they take so much precedence that basically we can get our shit together to get a proper tour, right? Because all the eggs are in the Olympic basket. Exactly. Yeah. So you kind of fall into the trap of being that sport that you watch once every 4 years.
You sound like John Horton right now. That's his whole contention is we should not be trying to worry about the Olympics. And I'm starting to come around to that.
Yeah, I've been thinking about this for 2 or 3 years. Well, I mean, it started by just track record. right? Like we tried over and over and over, not really ever gotten close, with the exception of Athens. And then I thought, okay, well, if we are to pursue the other path, might as well pursue and focus there, right?
Yeah.
But then I've always thought that winter sports would benefit because, you know, at the Winter Olympics, there's so many like spots, you know, that like you have all sorts of sports there. And you have sports that are really just, you know, national team, Europeans, Pan Am's, Worlds, and then Olympics. And then sports like snow skiing, where you have a World Cup, or, you know, snowboarding, where you have both, right? And I thought, well, maybe in winter sports, both can coexist. But he was actually making the point that he wasn't saying we should get away from the Olympics, but he was saying that probably one of the reasons why, according to him, they don't have a solid pro tour is the fact that they are in the Olympics.
That's interesting.
I don't know.
So my question is, when do you think the Olympic push or the Olympic movement started? When did we start trying to get water skiing in the Olympics? Do we even know that?
Well, I don't know. We know. I know we won in '72 in Monaco, right? Ricky McCormick won tricks and jump. Robbie Zucchi won slalom. So we were demonstrative sport. Although I read
in '72.
In '72. Although I read up that we weren't part of the. I don't know if it was the rule at the time or it's the Olympic rule. We weren't part of the medal count. I don't know.
Yeah. Overall medal count, because we were an exhibition sport. Yep.
Okay.
But here's what I'll say. I asked that because, well, two reasons. Number one, because I feel like, to your point, maybe the reasons that we're trying to be an Olympic sport, maybe there's more to it. You know, for instance, USA Water Ski is the governing body in America, and maybe they're getting some sort of funding from, you know, conforming to, you know, USOC's regulations and rules and continuing to be a Pan-American sport. And under the auspices of everything that's happening with the U.S. Olympic Committee, maybe there's incentive for USA Water Ski. I'm just spitballing here.
Yep.
To be a part of that Olympic movement, more to keep themselves going, not in a bad way. I'm not pointing fingers, but more to like keep funding coming in. I don't know if that's a thing, rather than for the long-term good of the sport. The reason I ask that is because when you talk to okay, back up. Trying to put together a water ski documentary on, a couple things, but mainly what happened to pro skiing.
Okay.
Where did it go? Right? The rise and fall of pro skiing. That's a significant question because nobody knows. And we've done a terrible job, as you and I have discussed, talking about the history of the sport. So backtrack, I'm doing interviews and my buddy who's kind of my co-editor and, you know, producer, I guess if you will, and I are making these calls and we're talking to these legends, and we talk to Ricky McCormick, and he tells us about his past, his history, you know, being on the Ed Sullivan Show with the Rolling Stones back in 1967, Tricky Ricky, and then transitioning into, you know, 1972 Munich Olympics, exhibition sport. He gets a gold medal as a water skier.
Yep.
But then pro skiing kind of takes off, like in the mid to late 70s. You start having pro events, and there was a huge amount of friction with that, to the point to where the other guy I talked to, Bob LaPointe, a friend of mine, he was kind of coming along when Ricky was kind of just starting to trail off, but they're almost similar ages. So there's a dichotomy. Ricky was more focused on the amateur side of skiing. Bob was more like, screw it, let's go for it. Let's see what we can do. And he, if I get my story straight, he didn't go to the Masters 1 or 2 years because there wasn't prize money or because they weren't going to pay or, you know, whatever it was. So you have two different sides of the same coin. They're both trying to be the best in the world back in the 70s, but you've got Ricky kind of playing the game of, you know, this is an amateur sport. Let's continue to follow that lead. And you've got Bob saying, no, let's go this other way. And I'm just painting kind of that picture. It may be partially my own construction, but that's essentially what it felt like back in the 70s. And basically pro skiing took off for a while.
Yeah.
And then it died, and now here we are again. You know, I was part of that Olympic dream, trying to chase it, being a USOC AAC member and trying to go to meetings, and the wheels turn super slow like we talked about last time. And to your point, is it holding us back? Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
Probably need to give it up, especially because there's no Olympics right now, or they got pushed back.
Yeah, got pushed back to next year. Yeah. So
hey, can we cuss? What are we doing? What kind of words are we using?
I don't know. Yes. Let's do it.
We're gonna keep it clean. You want
to keep it clean? I'll try.
I don't know.
Yeah, let's try.
We'll see what happens.
You know, it's not easy with the whole English as a second language thing to keep it clean, but I guess I can try.
No, it's not.
Okay, well, there you go.
I'm sorry. I had to. I apologize, folks. We'll keep it clean.
Oh, yeah, okay. Let's do that. But see, like, well, a few thoughts come to mind. One, what do you think Ricky and Bob's influence was in this shift, or was it just the time that they found themselves in?
That's a good question. I haven't thought about that. I think it may have been the times that they found themselves in.
Yeah.
You know, like it was to the point to where just having pro events, from listening to what Bob was saying, like at Marine World, or even before that, to try to have pro events, they were getting blacklisted. The judges who went to judge, the officials who went to the pro events, were getting blacklisted by AWSA and not being able to ski or work any other events, from what I understand.
Yeah.
Because they didn't want water skiing to become a professional sport, more or less, because maybe it was going to limit their ability of what they could do with the USOC. I don't know. But the point is, there was a huge rift. The folks who thought there should be professional skiing and for pay sports, and those who were like, nope, we're going to be an amateur sport. Huge rift from the top down.
But yeah, from the top down. But then if we consider down the athletes, I wonder if there was a divide like that also at the time, right? I don't know. Did you get a sense? When you
talk to Bob, I don't know if I don't think that it wasn't like the wakeboarding water skiing debacle of the late 90s. It wasn't like, all right, F you guys, we're wakeboarders. You get out of our event, or, you know, screw you, we're skiers, you don't belong here. It wasn't like that. It was more, I think, just athletes trying to figure out what to do. I mean, the sport was new. There was Cypress Gardens. There was pop culture was showing skiing all the time. And I think it was just kind of Wild West, if you will. Mm-hmm. And it was just like they were cresting a hill and deciding which way to go.
Yeah.
And I don't think it was like people looking down their nose, what are you doing? You should be on our team. It was just more like people were kind of falling into place. And then when you look back, yeah, you can make a case for maybe some people were on one side of the argument and some people are on the other as far as the athletes goes, but I don't know. I think it was more good natured than that.
Okay. No, well, because, you know, thinking of that, like, I think now it's different. I mean, you spoke about how it grew a little, like whatever resurgence we're having, like maybe resurgence is too big of a word, but, you know, it's more organic, you know, like, and I agree. And I think that one of the benefits possibly of that is that there's no more Wild West. Like in my opinion, if you speak to any slalom skier, which is, let's face it, the only event that has seen a little bit of an uptick, right?
Yep.
I think they'll tell you, no, this is the way to go. You know, at least I would think.
You mean this is the way to go as far as just like
moving to pro skiing? Correct.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure.
You know, so
well. I mean that's again, I think that's a product of our environment. Look at it's 2021 almost, and everything is commercialism, capitalism. It's all in your face.
Yeah.
It's everybody's got their own ad campaign on their social media feeds. You know, let's face it. I've got friends in other sports that sometimes I scroll past, and I do it too. So I'm at fault. We're all playing the game. So to circle that back around, we're in a different time in 2020 than we were in 1970. And the fact that everybody is is just now it's acceptable to be your own manager and look at me, selfies, and how cool is this shot, and then we mask our own self promotion with. I do this too. We mask our own self promotion with words, with just decided I'd freaking go take a quick ride or whatever. But it's like somebody running. I'm running 39 or whatever it is. Like, yeah, that's like, hey, check out how I can run 39 and a half off. That's not like, oh, I'm just gonna go take a casual ski ride. You know what I mean? But we just I don't know if I'm getting my point across, but it's different now than it was back then. Back then, there wasn't everything in your face, and it wasn't just implied that you've got to go self-promote all the time. So I think the athletes maybe had a different perspective on pro skiing. Mm-hmm. I forgot what your original question was. I had a point.
No, you're circling around the point. I think I think it's interesting that maybe say 80s, right? There was a well-structured, organized pro tour, from what I understand, whether there was a major sponsor or there was some stops. People knew that this weekend is this, next weekend is that. Now, maybe the athletes on the, say, amateurs versus pro, or like institutional sport versus pro sport, were a little bit more Wild West, as you said, right? Like, okay, there's Worlds, let's go there. And there's a pro tournament, let's go there. Whereas now, it almost seems like a bit of a reversal. So all the pro tournaments that came up are a little bit of Wild West, in the sense that, okay, I'm going to try to do one. Let's see if people come. Okay, I'm going to try to put some money up. Let's see if people come. But then the athletes know how they envision the sport, right? Which is a pro tour with some kind of name that people can follow, and they get points. And at the end of the year, there's a champion,
Yeah. I see that. I don't know. It's just a different thing. Having grown up in the 80s, seeing that stuff on TV, wanting to be a water skier because of guys like Andy Mapple, Bob Lapointe, the Duvals, Carl Roberge, Patrice Martin, Michael Shaylander, wanting to be there because we saw them on TV. Everybody saw them on ESPN. Fast forwarding through the 90s and becoming the pro just as the sport was crumbling. I remember being on the starting dock at Belle Aqua, Lake One, for kind of the first time I made a final. Like Terry and I we made a cut. It was like 1999, and they had carried over two events into one event because a weekend got canceled previously in the spring. Okay. So we were all boycotting, and I don't even remember what the hell we were boycotting, but we were just like standing up to the tournament organizers. We were basically saying, no, we don't agree with you pushing us around. And this was kind of already the beginning of the end. It happened in 99. The fall of the pro tour started in like early 90s, but there was still a pro tour. So we basically were like standing up to him. We say, no, we're not going to ski unless XYZ. And I can't really remember what it was, but like everybody was there. Mapple, Roberge, like everybody was there. And I remember, I don't know why I brought this up, but I do remember Andy being resistant to making a stand. He was on top. He had no reason to rock the boat, and he was resistant to standing up to World Sports and Marketing. And I remember that distinctly as a 20-year-old, up and coming skier. And years later, he and I always had these conversations about how to promote the sport after everything fell apart. I went through that, and then the sport crumbled basically after that.
Yep.
As we were coming up, it was crumbling. So Andy felt bad about that. And I think when you circle back around, I knew he felt bad about that because he saw that the sport is only as strong as the engagement of the athlete body. And he knew in hindsight that we should have stuck together. You look at the World Surf League, WSL. I think they're still the premier entity in sport or in surf. They become a thing because they banded together. I know people hate the idea of unions, but I'm sorry, man. You've got to collectively, you got to bring your efforts together collectively, and you got to have a unified voice. Otherwise, you're divided. And we know if you're divided, you're going to be conquered, period. That's just the way it is.
Yeah.
And athletes we have lost our way in the sport. And where I'm getting with this is Andy saw how important it was in hindsight in the mid 2000s. He saw how important it was for the athletes to have some sort of unified voice, collective voice, and that the professional side of the sport is only as strong as that unified voice of the athlete body. And why I brought that up is because back in the 80s and 90s, the sport was on an upswing, and there was money coming in. Michelob, Coors, all these sponsors were coming in, and O'Neill, like, it was just huge. It was on TV, so there wasn't a need necessarily for that collective voice from the athletes. But as it's gone through an evolution, a cycle, if you will, now we're to the point to where, yeah, the athletes may feel like this is what you do. You become a pro skier, whereas back then it was like kind of, I don't know if I'm going to be a pro or not. Maybe I'll go to college, whatever. But back then, it was more like there was a machine and you just plugged into it. The World Sports and Marketing entity created they bought the tour from Mastercraft, from Rob Shirley. They bought the Pro Water Ski Tour essentially from Mastercraft, and they took it over. And it was just like, yeah, you plug in, you just sign up, you go, it's all taken care of. You don't really have to do anything. You show up, they give you food, they give you drinks, they give you bibs, they give you a place to sit out of the sun, and you ski. And now it's like, yeah, you show up, it's just like every other normal event. It's like a private lake, but it's got a name associated with it. Maybe there's some collective points, but it just feels like a normal water ski tournament for the most part.
Yeah.
Except like Moomba, and except a few events, it's just different right now. And I feel like there's no reason for it to be anything other than what it is right now, which is a shadow sport, right? There's no reason. Like I said in the Paradise Lost Flow Point episode, the athletes as a whole are much better than they were back in the 80s and 90s. The talent and the skill level and the dedication as far as what skiers are. Look at Joel Poland.
Yeah.
Watch his freaking Instagram feed. Look what he's doing on a trick ski. Are you
Insane.
kidding me? Like, what people are doing, right now is outside the box, but it doesn't matter because there's so much other white noise in 2020, and there's no collective movement in water skiing. People know this. We all know it, but nobody's taken the lead. Nobody's grabbed the spear and said, I'm the tip of the spear, follow me.
Yeah.
You know, nobody's done that yet.
Yeah, because when you say that, like even if athletes were to come all together and say, say as a group and say, I don't accept the way things are, who'd you go and protest to? There's not an entity anymore that takes care of this, right?
No. But okay, so let's I would like to zoom out a little bit. So why the hell does it even matter? Like, why do we care? Like, why are we even talking about pro skiing? The reason I think we're talking about pro skiing is because as a human race, as humans, we look to the best at whatever it is that we're looking at, whatever it is we're interested in. If we're interested in F1 racing, we want to know what the best do. If we're interested in golf, we want to know how those people put their shoes on. What do they do in their off time? What do they think about? How do they view the world? What do they, all this stuff. We, as humans, we know intuitively that if we stick close to the best, we will, by default, learn things from them, and we will be inspired, and we will be motivated. We will be captivated to be better in our own way. And we just naturally, if we're interested, we'll care enough to learn about that sport or to learn about that job or that vocation. So with water skiing, what the hell are we doing? Do we care about the future of the sport? If we do care about the future of the sport, that's why we should care about the best in the world. Yeah. But there's a caveat. We should also demand things of the best in the world. It's been a devolving evolution, if you will, in my opinion, with water skiers. It's almost, I hate to say it, but number one, water skiing is very expensive. Right now, it's impossible. It would be impossible for me to do what I did in 30 years ago. Now, with my family, my upbringing, my parents were teachers. Boats back then were, in today's dollars, they were $30,000.
Yeah.
A brand new ski boat, $33,000. You know what ski boats are now? They're $80,000 plus $90,000. That's insane.
Yeah.
That's effing insane.
It
okay.
is.
So that's the problem. That's the biggest problem. I think the industry has lost its way. I know it has, and I know why. I don't know why. I mean, it's just the way the world is. Corporations, you build something up, you sell it, you make money, you move on.
Yeah.
Corporate capitalism has delivered water skiing to where it is today. Yeah, I'm confident of that. You've got people at the top of the companies who aren't users. Rob Shirley, back in the day, loved it. He dreamt. He probably didn't sleep at night because he wanted to figure out how to make a better Mastercraft.
Yeah.
Now, it's got the same name, but none of the big companies are the same companies, and therefore they've distanced themselves from their own people, if you will, us, the skiers. So it's easy to sell a boat for $85,000.
Yeah.
And it makes sense when you look at the numbers. So that's one big problem. But the other problem is, the sport just, you got to give people something to be inspired about.
Exactly.
You got to give people something to look forward to. As humans, we need that. And so if we're not doing that, but we're not demanding of the athletes, hey, get out there. Like Freddie Winter is a great example. I think Freddie Winter is probably one of the best promoters of our sport. I don't know what he does, but he's always responding. He's always engaging. He's always posting videos. He's always commenting and replying. And he's working with Action Water Sports to put on a Mastercraft Pro in some capacity. He's helping out with that. He's at the regionals and in Idaho, the Western regionals, promoting the new Pro Star. He's just everywhere, and he's willing to go the extra mile. He's willing to talk. He's not asking what's in it for me. Yeah. He knows what's in it for him. He gets the satisfaction and the warm fuzzy feeling when he walks away from a long day in the boat, telling people, showing people, letting people experience what the new Pro Star skis and drives like. That warm fuzzy feeling for Freddie Winter is enough. That's what it is for him. And that's why he's a world champion, in my opinion, among other reasons. But that's also why we need more Freddie Winters in the sport. And there's good people. There's other. I'm just singling him out because it was an easy example, top of mind for me. But we need more of that so that we can then lean into those top players, those inspirational characters who are doing it for the right reasons. And then we can build the sport around that. And then we have something that we can be proud of. And then we have something that we can say, hey, this is what water skiing is about. Check out these athletes. They are the best in the world. And by the way, they are kick-ass people too. Go talk to them.
Yeah.
And then we have something that we can, that people can aspire to and actually look up to.
Yeah, no.
We don't have that right now.
No, I don't know that we don't have it. I think we have the basis to have it. But then it becomes.
I agree. We just
becomes what is the next step. What it becomes the next step, right? And I know that you in the past have tried, right? So because there are recent attempts at doing that, like happening as we speak, what did you try to do? What worked? What didn't?
Yeah, like I guess 06. I did a couple times. 06, 07, I tried to get the athletes together. And I say athletes, and this is a short-sighted approach, but I tried to get the men's slalom athletes together, to band together to form an athlete council, basically, or a slalom association. But to be honest, like I didn't really know what I was trying to do, and I didn't really push. You got anything, if you want to get anything done, especially now, as opposed to 20 years ago, it was easier. Now there's so much white noise. You've got to start. You got to keep pushing. You can't stop.
Yeah.
So I tried, but I was still trying to be a pro skier, whatever that meant. And I kind of let it go. And then later on in 2010, 2011, I tried again. Andy was going to help with that. And it's just hard. We're all in different parts of the world. But I had an idea I was going to share. I can't remember what that was. But I want to circle back. I didn't mean we don't have what you're talking about today or what I was talking about. I think I think what's hard, dude, is that why are we doing this? Why do you ski?
Well,
why do you ski? What is it?
Let's not go to why I ski. Like, why do I care about having an organized pro tour? Because I think it's the future of high level water skiing. Why do I care about high level water skiing? Because I think that it can bring situations like what you had when you were watching ESPN as a kid, right? Now, doesn't have to be so that this kid becomes the best in the world. That's a nice story. But if you can inspire 10 people to try water skiing, right? Then skis are sold, boats are sold. You know, this is one of the many facets of how we grow the sport. We send people somewhere where to follow it, right?
Sure.
And to me, that's why I care about that, right? I think we are close because, you know, I think all that needs to happen is to capitalize on tournaments that have arisen by themselves, right? And see if you can unify them into a tour. Not a ranking list of points that nobody understands, that is impossible to find. A tour with simple points, easy to understand, available to watch. So you see, like, the pieces are somewhat coming, you know, in and of, like, by themselves, right? Now is a question of how do you unify them.
I agree. I have a question for you. When you're coaching somebody, what do you try to zero in on when you're coaching them? What's the one thing you try to zero in on? Right? You try to identify the most fundamental deficiency that they have.
Yeah.
And then it's basically Occam's razor. It's the simplest explanation is usually the right one.
Yep.
So that's what you're trying to do. You're trying to zero in on what's the single most impactful thing that I can say or concept I can get across to this water skier right now that can make the most improvement. And I think that's what we should focus. So my point is, I don't disagree with anything you're saying and more, but I think what it is it's we're looking at all the things that are close or that are maybe slightly off or that could be better. But I guess my question is, if we just zoom out, what's the single most impactful thing that could happen that could make the most difference? There's a quote by Buckminster Fuller, something about, and Buckminster Fuller was a phenomenal visionary, but back in the day he was talking about, for humanity, he said the most important task is basically to get all of humanity to educate itself quickly enough to generate spontaneous social behaviors that will lift all boats together, basically. Mm-hmm. In other words, like, what can we do individually? What changes can we make? What's the most impactful thing we can do that will just spontaneously create the most positive change? For
professional or aspiring, well, it's I don't think if you look at the sport in general, you can find one in the hour of conversation that we'll have. What I do think is one organization or entity or umbrella that puts together all these great things that have been happening spontaneously. Because it's not that you know, like, the tournaments are there, the athletes are going to them for the most part. There's money at these tournaments. It's not the money we want. It could be more. It should be more. Yes. But people don't know how to follow them, you know? Now there's starting to be a webcast that everyone can watch, that it's accessible. So to me, the most impactful thing that can happen in pro water skiing is to put all of this together under one umbrella, where, you know, the person that you have next week skiing at your house or someone that skis here at ski school, I can give them, go there. And there they can watch, you know, they can watch the Moomba, they can see what Sasha does at any Maple Pro-Am, they can see how many buoys Will is ahead of at this tournament, you know, like everything in one place. To me, that's the most impactful thing.
Sounds pretty simple when you put it like that. I mean, honestly, it's 2020 again. I keep saying that, but anybody can make a website, and I know that there are some key hubs out there right now, but maybe it takes a meeting of the minds to get everybody together so that there's literally one collective place where we all pool our resources instead of each of us trying to get a little piece of the pie.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I think that's what's happening right now. I know these efforts have been done before, but there's a group of 8 of us that are basically lobbying in the IWWF to make it happen. I don't know how successful we're going to be, judging by the history of the entity and my history with it. I don't know if I can expect a whole lot of success. But what's really good is that I really like the people of this committee. And I think that these people have the genuine willingness to improve things, right? They go to bed at night thinking, how can I make my sport better? And they come from all sorts. You have tournament organizers, people in the industry, skiers, so it's media. So it's pretty cool. Yep. I don't know how much I can say right now because it's not even that official yet, but I think that's going to impact the sport for the better.
I'm excited. That sounds good. Sounds important.
We'll see what happens. Let's.
We just dove straight in, just right away.
Yeah, that's
podcast. Let's just go straight for the jugular. What are we doing, dude?
I don't know, man. I just felt the need to lighten it up a little bit. I don't know why, but we're going deep.
I mean, I'm staring at my lake right now. It's 55, 57 degrees Fahrenheit, and there's a slight ripple on the water. And if you're ambitious enough, you could probably go make some pretty comfortable passes with a nice syndicate wetsuit, shorty or long. Spring, that's whatever it takes.
That was the weather here 2 months ago. Like I would come in a second. Here,
what?
I don't know Fahrenheit, man. I mean, that's the only imperial unit of measurement that I refuse to learn.
We don't need to get into the battle.
Well, that's all right. That's all right. We have Siri.
Yeah, we got Siri.
What is 10 Celsius in Fahrenheit?
That would be
probably 51.
Fahrenheit.
50.
Yeah.
Oh, 10 is 50. Good. Okay, that's good.
Yeah.
So today's 10. Lake is perfect.
Okay.
It's right there, but the boats are winterized, so no skiing. Pretty sad day.
What's the most exciting thing in the sport right now? Do you think? What is something that every time you think about it, you're just like, okay, wow, there we go. Or what's the least exciting thing that needs the most attention?
Okay.
What's the elephant in the room? Because you go on Ball of Spray and you go on the forum and there's a lot of energy. There's a lot of positive energy. There's a lot of people fired up about skiing. There's a lot of people rediscovering the sport.
Yep.
There's a lot going on, especially this summer. Everybody was outside. Everybody's on the lakes. It was crazy. So we got new people coming back into the sport, or old people rediscovering. But what are we missing? Like I've got my opinions, but I kind of want to hear what your take is.
Well,
because you're a Euro dude. You've got a different perspective.
Yeah,
I hate to say, but that's a good thing.
Yeah, it is different. You know how skiing is a little bit different here. Well,
yeah,
I think the most exciting thing, and I know I said this at your house last year, but I think even more so this year it held true, is that the base of the pyramid is growing. I really think so. You know,
I agree.
I mean, this year at ski school, just the examples I have near me. You know, like the ski school has never worked as much as this year. We broke all PBs, and we were in lockdown March and April, including Easter, which is a lot of rides to pull. Ski shop 45 minutes from here couldn't keep up with the orders. You know,
that's crazy.
My dad works in the boat industry, not in water ski boats, but in the boat industry. And he's told me what some of the skiers in the US that I spoke to told me, like boat industry is like off the charts this year. Right, so people got out of lockdown. They just wanted to get on the boat and be outside. Felt like you could stay distant with the boat. So there you go. You know,
people are fired up to be out.
Exactly. So that's, I think maybe if I look at least this year, that's certainly one of the big things. What's missing? What's missing?
What? Yeah. What's the missing piece, dude? What do we need?
You know, in a way, yes, the sport has gotten more expensive. Yet, I'm not so convinced that is holding our numbers. Like, I think our numbers could be much higher, even considering how expensive it is. Now, if you tell me, should it be cheaper? Absolutely. But could we have more numbers with the current expense of the sport? I think so as well. What I was going somewhere with this. Yes, one of the things that makes it, in my opinion, to where more people are just going to be on the water is more sites, right? More sites,
more access,
more boat ramps, more man-made lakes or old pits that you can access and do water skiing.
Yep, for sure.
And I think of the example, I don't know how big of a soccer person you are, and I'm not huge, but like I know that in the last Euro Cup, Iceland did amazing. They got into the quarterfinals, I believe. And everyone was shocked. I mean, Iceland, 250,000 people? It's pretty cold in Iceland. So how did they make it? And I remember watching the Italian news. They were interviewing the Ministry of Sport of Iceland. And basically she said, it's simple. Like 15 years ago, we had 16 soccer pitches around the island. Now we have 300.
Yeah.
You
That's a big deal. But isn't the access, so what you're talking about is what I would backtrack and say the simplest explanation that would get the biggest result, which would be lowering the bar. So when you say, does it need to be, more affordable? It could, but we could have more numbers at the current, what would you say? Given the current price tag of the sport, we could have more numbers. But to me, that's like saying, okay, you're riding a 62-inch junior slalom ski and you're 180 pounds. Yeah, you could ride a bigger ski, but you could still be better on that 62-inch ski. It's not a wrong argument. Yes, you could always be a better skier if you're 180 pounds riding a 62-inch ski. But don't you need to be on an appropriately sized ski right away? Isn't that the quickest, most simple fix? And I think the answer is yes. And that's what I would say about the cost of our sport. The cost of our sport is ridiculous. I'm just going to say it. It is ridiculous.
Yeah.
That needs to change. Like, our numbers could be better within the context of keeping the cost the same. If the boat stayed the same, the ski stayed the same, everything stayed the same. Yeah, our numbers could be more. There's still people that could afford it. And there's still people we could grab. But it's a very small segment. It's a very small subset. It's a tiny portion of how many more people could we get if the sport was just half as expensive? How many more people would consider it? And the reason I brought that up is because accessibility is the same argument. It's just a different form of it. Yeah. More sites available to skiers is just the same form. It's just lowering the bar. If we lower the bar in whatever way we're talking about lowering the bar, we will get more people. We'll probably that's the quickest way to get more people in the sport. And that's what I want. Ultimately, it's like, I would love to see more people on the lake. Yeah, does that make the water bumpy? So what? People are out enjoying nature. People are out enjoying moving through space. People are enjoying dancing with the boat. There's something. The world is a better place if you're a water skier than if you're not. Yeah. Is that correct? Yeah, like if you take water skiing out of your life for a year, you can't water ski, you're probably not going to be quite as good of a human. I mean, you're a great guy, but I'm just saying, you minus water skiing is probably going to be, you're probably going to be bummed out a little bit. There's going to be something missing. So if we can get
it wouldn't
more
be fun to
people
be
that,
around.
Yeah, I mean, you're still fun to be around. You're still, you got a lot to offer. But my point is, the world would be a better place in general, collectively, if we had more people skiing behind the boat.
Yeah. No, I think that too.
Why not lower the bar?
Yeah, no, I agree. I just don't know. I don't know if it's a chicken or the egg. I mean, obviously, the more access, the more products and services in water skiing are sold, hence more competition, hence possibly lowering the prices. But, you know, like I'm thinking of some places that I'm familiar with that are considered very good sites to ski. And maybe I'm thinking too far up the pyramid, but even if we lower the price, there's no more spots left. Like there's no more water time for people to ski. Now I know maybe I'm thinking too far at the top, right, of the pyramid, but I don't know. I feel like if there were, like, say, take an example. I'm about an hour 15 from Milan, right, and there's 0 ski sites in Milan. Like Milan is like a 4-5 million people city. There should be like 15 minimum,
Sure,
right?
Sure.
But then, of course, it becomes challenging because the land is expensive, and you know, like all the bureaucratic issues that come with that. But in Milan, wouldn't you want to find, like, you know, 0.01% of that population that can afford water skiing? Damn, you couldn't feed them in 15 lakes, right? So to me, it's about access. You know, there's just not that many places to ski. And those that there are in the middle of nowhere, right? Yeah.
I've always thought we needed like 20 more Okehili parks in America.
Exactly.
Because that would change the game. It's a killer model.
It is.
Hey, we're probably putting people to sleep. We should spice this up a little bit. How are we gonna? What else do you want to freaking get after? Because I don't know. I feel like you and I could go.
You should know by now. I call with no plans. I have no plans.
We could go down the rabbit hole all day on this topic.
But I think people enjoy that. You know.
Yeah, maybe. True. Don't people also want to, like, you know how to, like, use their mind better, like their ninja mind, or know how to ski better? I don't know.
Yeah, I'm sure they do.
Or know how to manicure their beard.
Well, I don't know that I'm the best person. I got a guy. I found a guy here also. You know. But no, why don't we talk about what we tried to do, and in my opinion, at least for the Water Ski podcast, ended up being a bit of a failure, but for Flow Point Method is going to work very well. Why don't we talk about that? What did we try to do?
Yeah, we tried to analyze some professional water skiers on the fly with some video analysis.
Yeah.
Some drawing, some sketching. Yeah. So who are the girls? We did Brooke Baldwin and Allie Nicholson.
Yep, we did them too, and then we did Cole McCormick and Freddie Winter.
Freddie, and we looked at Matteo.
Missouri. Kind of. Yeah.
That was instructive. So Brooke and Allie, two skiers that you and I both kind of agree are kind of on opposite ends of the spectrum in some ways.
Yep.
Correct?
Yep. Yeah, very different style.
Yeah. What does Brooke do really well? Do you remember?
Wow, you're testing my memory now.
Me too.
But I think one of the things we agreed on was her stance into her onside turn, which like resembled a little bit what we said about what possibly Nate does. Very balanced, very much with the ski washing, the water. And then with Allie was that sort of like, which you made me notice, like how she stands up as she transitions, right? Which is something that, you don't see a lot doing. Actually you see quite the opposite sometimes in other skiers. But so yeah. Drawing's not the easiest thing to convey via audio. So
that's going to be on the Flow Point Method YouTube channel.
Exactly.
But to your point, I think one of the things that Brooke is, in my opinion, is phenomenal at is she's got touch, right? She's got touch and feel, and I think that comes from 3 eventing maybe. But she doesn't overload the rope into the wakes.
Yep.
She doesn't lean too hard, and she's really balanced on her approach out to the buoy, and she has really good handle control. The handle's in a good spot.
Yep.
Low, forward, which there's very nuanced. So for the elite level skiers, it makes more sense. For the 15 off, 22 off skiers. It's not as important. But what is important is the fact that she's balanced on her ski. That trumps everything else. The fact that she's balanced through her feet. Yep. I think, again, most fundamental thing in slalom skiing, in my opinion, is I call it athletic stance. Both Allie and Brooke are great at that, as they should be. They're some of the best in the world from the female side. But Brooke is very exemplary of somebody who's got a good feel on her ski. But the bad thing is, I think she pulls a little too long.
Right.
Most women do pull a little long. You can get away with that at 34, easier than 36.
Yeah.
And so, just as an aside, one thing I talked to Freddie Winter about this in one of our podcasts. One thing I've always toyed with, or the idea of toyed with, is skiing faster than your max speed. I'm of the opinion that Regina trains at like 35 miles an hour. That's just what I think. She looks like somebody who's done a little bit of different speed training, if you will. Like she's just not. She's got a different perspective than most of the other women, and so I think that could help some of these women skiers to find a better cadence, if you will.
Yeah.
And big dog skiers and amateurs skiing at 34. I would say practice at 35 a bit, because what happens is as the speed's higher, you're riding higher on the water, you can't get away with pulling as long.
Yep.
The problem is at skiing at 34.2 miles an hour, 55K, you can end up getting away with mistakes. And then what happens is you ingrain those mistakes as motor patterns that become second nature. And then those devolve into more and more mistakes, but you're not identifying the key deficiency at the very beginning that's causing the start of that chain reaction, that domino effect, which for most people is pulling too hard, pulling too long.
Yeah. And not being on their ski properly, right?
Not being stacked.
Yeah. Not being stacked and not having the right stance. I think, I know, but like that's one of the things that Wade like makes his students work like mad, like how they stand on the ski, right? And I think there's obviously good reason for it, because you have to be able, even on the flats, right, to have a position that then you go or have a balance on the ski, like having a feel under your feet that then you go and search while you're trying to get stacked, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like you said, on dry land, on the flat, before you get in the ski, or as you're in the ski, but before you get in the water, like if you can't even get in an athletic stance there and you're not quite aware of what it is and you don't know how to activate the right muscles in your body, and you don't have the mobility or the limberness, if you will, to get your hips over your front foot without arching your low back, then you're screwed.
Yeah.
So those are things like that's what we started the Flow Point method for, was to help people identify what are their weak links so that they can get their body to do the things that they want it to do. Number one, can your body do the things that you need it to do? Number two, what are those things? If you don't know what those things are, then how do you expect to get better?
And what I really like about the Flow Point method, I've said it, I might not have articulated in previous podcasts like this, but I like that, it's something you can buy into and go with it, right? I know, and also a couple of guests that I've had, like, basically said how their commitment to one coach, to one way, helped them out a lot, right? Yeah. And I think that in skiing, there's oftentimes a lot of confusion, right? Because I think the sport becomes very technical from the beginning, right? Like this, to me, in my opinion, the second you are attempting to run the slalom course or you're trying to clear your first speeds, it's already quite technical sport, right? Yep. So if you don't have, I guess another way to put it is, if I speak to someone who's running 28 miles per hour and they tell me what they struggle with, or I tell them what I'm struggling with, we can have a conversation because there's already a lot of similarities, right? Now, as someone who's running 39, basically I know that it becomes very fine-tuned and there's different opinions on how to do this and that. And so the 28 miles per hour skier could get the same vibe essentially. Now, I have the experience to sip through and decide what to take. The 28 miles per hour skier doesn't, right? And so there comes the confusion and bad habits. So that's what I love about your program is that if someone makes the commitment, right, they can just go, okay, this is what I follow. And I just go that route, you know?
I agree. I would go a step further and say, I agree with what you just laid out as a reality. I think, and Jenny says this throughout our programming, it doesn't matter. Ultimately, it doesn't matter what you do initially. It just matters that you follow a program.
Exactly. That
you follow something. And Elizabeth said that on your podcast. She said, hey, you know what? I committed to Chet. I just stuck with one coach. Chet's a great coach. Do I agree with everything Chet says? No.
Yeah.
But that doesn't matter because more times than not, good coaches are going to get the athletes moving in mostly the right direction. And what happens is you take that first step, you take that second step. If you move in the same direction, you end up making progress. I have an experience with it. Well, so years ago, a friend of mine, she was a jumper, pro jumper, and very good jumper, very good athlete, but she would always take all the input. Mm-hmm. She would listen to everybody. And I think she's not alone. I would do that. Most people do that. They ski with different ski partners from one week to the next. They ski in different locations from 1 month to the next. We're always looking. We're aggregating new information. We're looking for the best information. The problem is nobody is running that information through a fundamental set of principles, right? That's what I meant with that Buckminster Fuller quote earlier, is everybody on their own should be able to decipher, identify, and process new information and have the tools with which to decide, is this good information or is this bad information? Does this line up with the direction I'm going, or is it in discord with the direction I'm going?
Yeah.
And then be able to adjust accordingly. So that's really, like, in my opinion, it's really the most important thing is giving people the tools with which to make their own choices, make better choices, but trying to get them to move in a direction, period. Yeah. Now, if you have the tools and then you start moving in one direction and you have the tools to understand whether this is going to be right or wrong, you can make adjustments on the fly. This is true in life. It's just make a move, make a decision, start walking in that direction. If you develop the tools as you move in that direction, then you can decide at some later date, do I need to move do I need to change course a little bit? If yes, change course. If no, keep moving the direction you're going. But whatever you do, start moving in a direction. And I think that's really, that's what we're trying to do with the method, is give people a direction to move in. But more than that, give them the fundamental tools they need to understand how skiing works. What are the physics of skiing? Okay, here are the physics of skiing in a simplified manner, easy concepts to understand. Okay, here are the physics or the fundamental movement principles that your body should be able to move in these ways. And if they don't move in these ways, then you need to work on them. Okay, here's the basics of nutrition. Here's the basics of mindset. That's kind of what we're trying to do. Now, the one thing that I was going to say, the one thing that...
Yeah, go on.
Well, the one thing that I think gets lost is understanding the way your body moves off the water. Just understanding the way your body moves. Skiers don't really pay attention. A lot of skiers historically, I didn't. Maybe that's why I'm saying it. Maybe a lot of people do. But understanding how your body moves or how it doesn't move into shapes can make a huge difference. This could be the lowest hanging fruit for a lot of skiers listening right now, is just simply being able to use their body better and being able to put it into more shapes. Most people could get into more shapes when they're 5 years old than when they're 35 years old. It's just the rigors of a life lived sitting behind a desk, behind a steering wheel, in a boat, whatever it is. Your body deteriorates over time. So just by being able to identify how your body is deficient, in other words, can you put your arm overhead? Can you open your hip up all the way? There are things that we help you identify that will make you a better skier if you just work on those. If throughout the winter you just worked on hip mobility and shoulder mobility, not only will you automatically become a better skier by the time you get on the water next spring without even worrying about skiing, without even thinking or taking one more ski ride. But you'll also be able to ski longer. You'll also be able to limit your potential for injuries. You're also going to be able to ski more years into the future without a nagging elbow or a nagging shoulder or a nagging knee or hip or a back from keeping you off the water. So it's just collectively trying to figure out what are all the things that can make you the best skier possible and taking that shortest path to your greatest potential. That's what it's all about.
And I think, like that is that, I mean, maybe worded a little differently, but that's pretty much why I've been promoting it on the podcast for, quite a few episodes now. I think you guys have something really good going on. What I am interested in, though, is how is it been for you guys, for you and Jenny, to create it? Like, when did you start coming up with the idea? What are some of the challenges you've had in starting it up, in continuing it?
Yeah, so those are good questions. I mean, just a bit of personal history. Jenny was a college athlete her whole life. And she ended up being a CrossFit Games athlete, which some people know, some people don't. But she also was a strength and conditioning coach before that. She got an exercise science degree. So she's got this unique synergy of skills. She understands how the body moves. She understands your normal kind of Globo Gym, PT. Like I just lump those into the same. They're not. But she understands kind of the mainstream approach to strength and conditioning. But she also has this CrossFit style approach because she was one of the best in the world at one time.
Yeah.
And she's an athlete, so she's still doing it. You look at her, you're like, all right, she's fit because she is. She practices what she preaches. So she's brought these two things together, and she's got probably, in my opinion, not only the most well-rounded approach to sports-specific fitness, but she also is really good at scaling and modifying things based on what's your fundamental deficiency. Do you have a bad shoulder? Do you have a bad hip? Do you have a bad back? Do you have a bad neck? She'll help you work through those things. Yep. So our program is more or less kind of the jumping off points, a generic program from that respect. But Jenny's there to hold people's hands and help them work through fundamental deficiencies and nagging chronic injuries. So that's kind of the physical fitness side of it. And she's been like nagging at me for 10 years, ever since 12 years. Ever since we started the face-to-face tour back in 2008. And she was working with people off the water, helping them with warm-ups, helping them with cool-downs, helping them with nagging injuries. And she saw how a lot of skiers are just not really focused on anything except for skiing.
Right.
And she's like, hey, there's a big need here for this. Like, I don't understand how people aren't warming up before they ski. I don't understand how they're not stretching after they ski. Things like that. So she even opened my eyes to that. And of course, my whole thing was Terry Winter and I, back in 1996, were approached by world champion Mike Siderhout. You know, the guy was an outspoken kind of like visionary. He had a minor in physics. He opened our eyes to how water skiing works. We started the conversation of, let's look at the physics of it instead of the style. Instead of saying, here's what Andy Mapple did, here's what Jeff Rogers did, let's try palm up. Let's try shoulders level. Let's try straightening our legs. Instead of just trying to copy and paste, Mike initiated our cognitive understanding of water skiing. Yeah. And I think a lot of the stuff you see today, a lot of people's understanding of the physics of skiing, of line tension, of your center of mass, that whole concept of center of mass, that wouldn't even be in a discussion. You wouldn't have guys like Adam Caldwell, Adam Cord talking about what they're talking about if you didn't have Mike Siderhout initiating the conversation in the mid-90s.
Yeah.
And Terry Winter and I were kind of able to take that and run with it. Yeah, we didn't get it all right back then, but we've been honing it since then. Like West Coast Slalom came out, we missed a lot of things in that video. We kind of got taken on a ride, if you will. It wasn't what we were thinking about back then. It was just kind of like the latest and greatest in Mike's mind, and Mike sometimes gets carried away. But the short version is we've been on this journey of understanding the physics of skiing, and I've been on this journey for 25 years.
Yeah.
And so to be able to continue to synthesize what we started learning back then And to have been off the water for 8 or 10 years and to have a different perspective on it, and to see people not quite still understanding how skiing works, that's motivating to me on the water ski side. So you've got Jenny over here knowing there's a huge deficiency in water skiers and how they approach their own skiing and how they approach being an athlete. And then you got me thinking about, holy crap, there's still a lot of misinformation out there about water skiing. And we can make this simple and easy to understand for people and give them that Occam's razor, that simplest approach to being the best version of themselves from a water ski technical aspect. So we just said, yeah, COVID hit. Let's do it. We've got time. Let's create this virtual program, this platform where you can access it on your phone, on your iPad, on your computer, anytime, any day, and get the best information. And that's kind of where we're coming from with this thing. And it's been great. We've created an ecosystem with your help, with Jamie Bull's help, with Corey Vaughn's help, with some of our other ambassadors, and with our early adopters. We do a twice a month Zoom call, and people are loving it. Yep. We get to answer, we get to listen, we get to take feedback, and we created this little community where people all over the country have come together through the Flow Point method, and we've created this little community, and it's awesome. People have become friends through it.
No, and I think that's maybe one of the things that, for those who are not in the program might not realize. There's a lot of personal touch, you guys meet twice a month. There's a lot of opportunities for one-on-one. So, there's a lot behind this, which is, I'm curious to hear what are some of the challenges you guys have been through or you are still facing in doing this. We're talking about every day. There's if you follow it religiously, every day you know what you have to do. Okay, today I ski, or maybe today it's a rest day, or I work out. This is what I need to work out. There's a video for every exercise. There's a lot behind this.
There's a lot. Every day of every week of every month of the whole year is spelled out. Whether it's off season right now and it's gym and more addressing fundamental deficiencies from standing, staggered on your ski for 5, 6, 7 months, or in season stuff where I'm prescribing the types of ski sets you should be taking daily based on how many ski rides you take every week.
Yeah.
It's everything. And there's videos associated with every movement in the workout side. There's video concepts and principles discussed on the ski technical side. I think one of the initial hard things was, okay, you got people in the Southern Hemisphere, in South America and in Australia. What do they do? Is there something for them? And now we got to the point to where we're able to offer, that was an initial hurdle, but now we have the whole program for a whole year.
Yeah.
So people can sign up who are in the Southern Hemisphere and they're in the in-season programming right now, whereas in the Northern Hemisphere, they're in the off-season programming.
Right.
So that's one thing we've been able to do that we're pretty stoked on. So we can offer this worldwide, and we have people in Australia and South America who are on board as well right now.
That's cool.
Which is really cool.
That's cool.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was just curious, another maybe challenge that you maybe have now. Is it keeping up with everyone, or staying on path with with all the things you have to do to post, to have it ready,
Yeah, I think a couple things that are hard are knowing what people want. I think that's one thing. Just what are people looking for? I think from my side, I kind of know what people need to hear about. I know what people need to be focusing on. From Jenny's side, that's a little less known because skiers are quirky and they have their own program sometimes and they don't want to follow something new. But again, it goes back to that thing of buying into something and just going with it and seeing what happens. Now, our program isn't set up so you have to conform 100%. You can grab some of the water ski stuff, you can grab some of the workout stuff and the fitness stuff, or you can grab a little bit of both or just one and go with it. Literally, the price of the program was an issue. We didn't know where we were going to set out initially. And we set the price a little higher than we would initially have thought we were going to charge. But that's because, like we talked about earlier, it's the industry as a whole is way overpriced. And we want to make sure that we can get this thing off the ground and dedicate enough time to provide a valuable product. Yeah. And so that's what we've done. We've priced it so it's cheaper for a year's programming. It's cheaper than the price of a new ski. It's literally cheaper than a Starbucks a day. That's what we say. If you can afford a Starbucks a day or a coffee a day, then you can afford the flow point method, and it's going to make you a much better skier than a cup of coffee a day.
See, but
honestly.
that's an issue for CP, because CP probably has at least 2 to 3 Starbucks a day, and I don't know that he's willing to give up on them, But I think for everybody else, that's definitely a rationale that works.
That's a good point. No, I hear you. Well, here's the other thing: is everybody is like always looking at the new shiny stuff, a new ski. Oh, is that new? This or that ski going to make me a better skier? The answer is usually, it might help you get, one more buoy here and there. But honestly, to be a better skier, I don't care what ski you ride, what binding setup you have, what boat you're skiing behind, what rope you use, what gloves you use. To be a better skier, you literally have to move better on your ski.
Yep.
And you have to be able to accept the loads from the boat and through your feet better. Period. There's no way around that. We live in a physical world, as far as we know, and so you have to conform to the physical rules and the laws of physics. So if you can use your body better, you can move your body through better shapes, and you can be stronger in those shapes, and you know how to move your body on the ski, you'll be a better skier. Period. Yep. Plain and simple. So you can A, choose to get the new shiny ski every year, or you can B, choose to get a new shiny ski every other year and try the Flow Point Method program, which, by the way, we give huge discounts. But you can try to learn about your own skiing. Yeah, I know you can get that other places. You can go to the Ball Spray Forum. You can go to, XYZ coaches. But we are giving it all in one place for a very affordable price. And you get to follow a program, and you get to follow a methodology that will make you a better skier. There's no doubt about it. We got people who jumped on board, and they're saying, man, I haven't felt this good in years. My aches and pains are going away. Yeah. We've got people who are saying this makes skiing understandable to me. Really appreciate what you guys have done. And those comments and those testimonials are what kind of keeps us going.
Yeah.
But again, it's hard to change the paradigm in the sport, and we know it's going to take time. We know it's going to take time to get people to come around to focusing on themselves instead of focusing on an external object like a new ski.
It's tough in a sport like ours that is it is equipment based, right? And I know, that changes in equipment can bring changes to your skiing. So it's tough to then discern, okay, buying a ski is simple. I don't have to put any effort. If I have the money, I go and I buy the ski. As opposed to, hold on, I have to re-question what I've been doing. I have to, So despite the fact that that's the right thing to do, there's more acceptance needed, right? But from what I've been able to see, there's been people that have accepted that and are buying into the program,
Yeah, you brought up a good point. I feel like it's the 34 mile an hour debacle. Have you seen people go to men's 3, 35 years old, they go from 36 miles an hour to 34? What happens to their performance in the short term, and what happens in the long term? I'm not even going to plant the seed. Can you tell me when people go from 58 to 55K?
Yeah, they're going to go up and then they're going to go down.
Year 1, they blow it out of the water. Sometimes they ski it maybe a pass better, but oftentimes they ski 3 or 4 buoys better consistently. Year 2, oftentimes they're 1 buoy better, maybe 2 buoys better. And then after that, they're back to where they were at 36, right? Yeah. It's because this, I don't know what this phenomenon is called. Maybe I do. I just can't think of it. But it's this thing of change. Initial change can lead to short-term improvements as far as external changes. Those are equipment changes, boat speed changes, things like that, binding changes. But over the long haul, if you're not careful, your technical skill set ends up devolving over time.
Yeah.
You know, like we talked about, when you go from 36 to 34, you can get away with pulling longer. You can get away with turning harder and augering in to kill speed to keep the rope tight. So you, more than not, you will do that. And then as by default, you start devolving your technique in a way that in the short term gets you an extra buoy or two, but in the long term kind of kills your momentum and kills your max potential. You end up in a worse place than you started. And I think that's what happens with new equipment. Is it's like easy, you get on a new ski, there's a new feeling, and then after like 3 or 4 rides, you know, it almost feels normal again, right? And Terry and I have talked about this. Terry's tried more skis, more binding configurations than anybody else I know, I think, in my opinion, maybe more than anybody else in the world. And he always goes, man, I can feel so much that first time I try a rear kicker. The second time I try a rear kicker, I can feel what I'm doing wrong with my double boots. But he skied on double boots for 30 years, so whenever he goes back to double boots, it feels more comfortable. It feels more natural. But there is value in him cycling back and forth between a kicker every once in a while to reacquaint himself with some of the things that he can't feel when he's on the double boot.
Yep.
So my whole point with all this is new equipment can make a difference, but it's a short-term hero approach rather than ultimately you've got to move better. And I know that people love taking the quick fix. They want the hack. It's 2020. We want the short-term gain.
Yep.
But that's not long lasting. If you really want to do the work and if you're really serious about being a better skier, man, understand how your body moves and understand how you want to move your body on a ski to be a better skier. Understand a little bit of the concepts of how to be a better skier, and you will by default become a better skier, and it will stick.
Put the work.
And I know you can get that other places, but you can't get the whole synthesized global approach to how to be a better skier, in my opinion, unless you understand the whole picture.
Yep.
So
yeah. I mean, you have to put the work, right? And you have to put well-informed, well-directed work. And I think you guys were able to provide that direction. What's new for you in the next month, 2 months? What are you going to be up to?
I don't know. I got some jobs. Got some film jobs coming up.
Are you coming to Europe? Are you coming to Europe?
I don't know if I'm coming to Europe. I was supposed to come to Europe last year. There's actually, I don't know. It's not going to happen, I don't think, right now with COVID. But got some snow ski filming I'm going to do. I've got some water ski filming I'm going to do. I've got some cool Flow Point TV episodes coming out next year, I hope.
Yep.
Maybe some special stuff that people will be fired up about. I've also got a new camera I just started playing with this morning, which is why I was a little frazzled before this podcast. And I think it's going to be pretty special.
Nice.
So I'm going to go film Terry later today. See how it goes.
But so does he live
Super
nearby
slow-mo.
now, or?
Yeah, Terry lives like 25 minutes away. He lives up in Paradise, that town that burnt a couple years ago. So he and Kristen and Emery moved back down from Idaho, and he's been skiing at my lake. He's probably taken, like 12 days off since they moved here in January.
Nice.
So 12 months and probably 12 days off.
Yeah, once a month,
total.
you know.
Which I don't recommend coming
of
from
course.
the Flow Point method. Obviously, he's doing his own program and it's working, but I'm just more than anything else, I'm trying to show like he's dedicated, he's fired up, and he's trying all kinds of different stuff, and he's, you know, working on his technique. And my brother's going through some cancer treatment stuff, and he's been pretty weak, and he lives here on the property. But one of the coolest things has been my brother getting to walk down to the dock, get in the boat, help Terry work through technical elements of his skiing. You know, my brother, being a big dog skier and being a pro skier back in the day a little bit, has a great eye and a great understanding. And it's like one of the coolest things for me to see how water skiing has kept Terry going, you know, age 41,
Yeah.
still running 41 off at 36 miles an hour on occasion. My brother, you know, 50 years old, dealing with cancer, still going because he has an objective. He gets to get get some fresh air every day. He gets to get in the boat. He gets to watch one of the best skiers in the world go out and refine his craft and help him through that journey. And I get to be a part of it as well. So it's the reason why water skiing is so powerful to me. Ultimately, yeah, the pro skiing side, how are we going to make it grow? How are we going to grow the sport at large? Those are all valid and noble causes. But for me, it's more about just the joy of water skiing and the fundamental intrinsic value is just in how it makes you feel when you get to do it, and how it makes you feel part of a community when you get to be around it.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, maybe you narrowed it down, you know, like maybe that's why a lot of skiers, you know, even, you know, I would say your general water skier wants other people to ski, you know?
Yeah.
Because they want to feel the same thing that they feel, you know, like you know how it is, you know, you get a ski set, a lunch break between, you know, your two shifts, and you have a great set, you know. It doesn't matter how the morning at work was. The afternoon is going to be amazing, you know, or vice versa, which is worse, you know. But it just goes to show how impactful it is for people, you know. And I think that,
I agree.
You know, that's I would want to say that's why a lot of people want others to ski, you know.
Well, I think you're right. I think deep down we all want as many people, like we talked about earlier, to get into the sport as possible, because we know there's value here. We know that even though it's just a stupid act of going around buoys, and really at the end of the day, it doesn't make the world a better place. At the end of the day, it really does make the world a better place because you're a better human.
Yeah.
Because it gives you a reason to be a part of a community. So we know that the world needs more people to water ski. Ultimately, especially if we can figure out like electric boats, that's a whole nother discussion. But if we can figure out like alternative energy boats, you know, Nautique did that years ago. I think, you know, we got to figure that out, because that's the one sticking point. The residue in my mouth is that we burn dinosaurs to do the sport. But beyond that, I don't want to digress. Beyond that, if we can get more people doing it, we're going to be in a better place. And I think on Ball Spray and on other forums, I've seen people say, I don't want more people in the sport. That means less lake time for me. And that's true. That's true within the context of this idea of scarcity. But in reality, if we can get more access to more people, to your point, I just don't think scarcity is a reality. I think if you're hungry enough, you'll get up at 6:30 in the morning and you'll go out to your public lake and you'll go find a shoreline that's wind protected and you'll go make 60 turns, buoys or no buoys.
Yeah.
You know, you'll go do it. Like that's the access is there. You just got to look for it. In snow skiing, yeah, there's lots of people snow skiing, but there's also lots of people touring and backcountry skiing and working for it. And there's a certain elevated sense of accomplishment in searching for something and finding it in hard to find places. And that's what we've got to prioritize as well, is in the recreational side, people are out there, they're searching for it, they're finding it, they're getting the goods. Scarcity is not as big of a problem as we think it is. We just got to, on the competition level, we've got to shift our focus to getting more people into water skiing in general, not just going around buoys, but just in general. That was the whole freeride movement I tried to start 7-8 years ago, was just getting people fired up about skiing.
Well, and you managed, man, because I mean, I don't know that I have had a chance to, you know, to tell you personally, but I think what you had in mind with the freeride, in a way, found this like one of his most beautiful expressions with the overcraft. I cannot begin to tell you how many skiers have been impacted just at my ski school by the overcraft, you know, like
that's cool.
So
really
many,
cool.
You know, like I've had people, I taught people how to ski without even going with combos, straight to overcraft. I've had people who, you know, they kind of knew how to do a deep water start, but they were kind of failing. They came in with their ski. So we taught them how to start on the overcraft and then progress to the freeride and then progress back to the ski that they own, right? Yep. Like there's so many stories like that. And I mean, and I know we spoke about it in your interview, but what you managed to start with, you and Dave with the freeride has brought a change in the sport. Other brands did something similar. So
Yeah.
that had a big influence,
Well, okay. I had this discussion the other day with Tony Klarich, who was a legend in the sport.
Yeah.
It's the difference between people who popularize something and people who invent something. I don't claim that we kind of invented this movement, because if you look back in the history, there was ski, like Conley had the F44 craze back in the 80s or 90s. Dave the Dog Reinhardt doing all kinds of crazy stuff on it. There were these kind of freestyle skis before, but with the free ride, we really wanted to change it so that it was a ski that was easier to get up on than the width would indicate, because it was a slender body ski, but you could ski slow speeds. And I think that kind of opened up the door again. Like you said, other brands were like, okay, let's get on the bandwagon. And now we've come up with the evolution. And really it's Dave Wingerter at HO and Bob. Bob's been doing this for 50 plus years, and he's always open to new ideas, always. And that's what's cool. You know somebody has wisdom when they have all the experience, but they're still willing to say, yeah, let's try that. And in the back of their mind, maybe they're thinking, we already did that. I'm just going to let these people make the mistake. Or they're thinking, we already did that, but there's a new configuration. Let's see how it goes this time. Either way, you can't have new things happen in the sport. You can't evolve the sport if you don't have people thinking outside the box and you don't have a little bit of money behind it. And that's a catch-22, because, like I said, access and getting good equipment is becoming harder because it's more expensive. And I'm riding those coattails because I'm at a brand who's providing a lot of those toys for a bit of a premium. So it's a chicken or the egg thing, but we're pushing the envelope, and you can't push the envelope without a little bit of R&D dollars. And so I think, yeah, you're right. It's just a matter of what's the next thing. What's the next thing that's going to break the seal and get more people behind the boat?
Yeah. No, I don't know. I don't know in terms of skis. I can tell you that, we're already on a decent track.
I got a question. Did you see Austin Keene, the dude with the dreads, the skimboarder or whatever, that did a lake to lake transfer through a tunnel?
Yeah, I saw that.
You see that?
Yeah. Insane.
That's the kind of stuff that we need more of in our sport. Who knows if it's going to go anywhere? But like a couple years ago, when I water skied behind the snowmobile in Powder, that was like an eye opener to me, that we need to get outside the box from a content creation standpoint. You know what I mean? Like, how can we do something different that people haven't seen that will get people's eyeballs on our sport? And I think Austin's really good at that. He's doing a killer job of that. And I've got some ideas. I don't know if I should share any ideas, but I've got some more ideas that we'll see if I can execute on. But one of them, the reason I brought it up, one of them involves the hovercraft. Mm-hmm. So I told you I don't like the fact that we burn dinosaurs. Yeah. HO, we are trying to think about our carbon footprint. And I know most people may think that that's kind of foo-foo or whatever that are listening. Maybe some don't. But yeah, it's something to think about. We live on a finite earth. There are finite resources. We should be thinking about renewable type approaches to creating products that we use every day, that we love, skis, things like that. So having said that, the hovercraft is a very low drag, slow speed ski. I've got a goal to do human powered water skiing.
Nice.
So we'll see how it goes. I've got a vision. I don't know if it can be pulled off, but.
Well, you remember Charlotte Wharton was on the UK national television doing a stunt like that with jumpers. She basically skied behind 9 rowers, I think it was, or 11. She basically did, just went straight with the jumpers, but these dudes were like pulling her. Don't give more details if you don't want to. It's okay. I can tell you what I'm planning on doing with Overcraft.
Tell me.
And it's something that I wasn't able to pull off this year because I want it to be well documented via video. But basically, one of the coaches that shaped me passed away early this year. and he had famously a ski school on Lake Iseo. It's a big natural lake here in across the provinces of Brescia and Bergamo. And I've been wanting to loop the lake. The total loop is 62 kilometers. So that's whatever miles. And
like 30 miles? No, 40.
No, 40. Yeah, maybe 45. Yeah, 40. Yeah, something like that. And I want to do it behind his boat, who, like, his daughter was a very, very good junior skier at the time. She was actually at the Junior Worlds in Shalom that you skied in. Got second there. Yeah. So she still has his boat, like his last boat, which was a 1990 Sports Nautique. Yep. And basically I want to do the loop around the lake without stopping.
That's awesome.
It's challenging. Like, I actually trained quite a bit this summer here. Basically doing, 25 minutes of skiing without stopping.
Yeah.
Trying different rope lengths, different speeds.
How fast are you going to go to do that?
Well, so what I figured, I had to test how fast I can go with overcraft, because
not as fast as you would like to go. I'll tell you that.
No, because, and I obviously don't recommend anyone trying this, but I tried to go 34 miles per hour. Not the most stable because it's not built for that.
Did you? What happened? Did you
fall
fall on your ear?
Shaking. It just starts shaking. You have to stay outside of the wake and just sort of stay there. Sort of limb, but not too limb. But basically the idea is I can't just zigzag around like behind the boat for an hour and a half. That just doesn't work.
No, it doesn't work.
But I kind of found a few things. So if I want to do some slaloming, sort of like carving and crossing the wakes, excuse me. Actually, what's better is to jump the wakes, not to cross them, right? So sort of take off, land on the slide, kind of like a trick ski jump, like wake jump, and then carve. And so the challenge becomes, how fast can I go and how long can the rope be for me to do it? Because obviously the faster I go, the faster I do this freaking loop, before my hands falling off. So we did a test in September, and a lot of it comes down to lake conditions, right? Like, is it windy? Sure. Where is the wind coming from? What kind of lap, what coast are we going to start from? There's also a big island in the middle, which is like the biggest island, like Sweetwater Island we have here in Europe. So are we going to go around that the first part, the second part? But I want to pull it off like late spring. And overcraft ended up being the easiest choice because there's a lot of surface area, but it's still one ski. Bindings are comfortable. I tried different placement and configurations. But that's my project for overcraft. But I want someone to document it. Like, it's basically in honor of Jose Castelli.
That's really cool. That's important.
Yep.
Keep the memory alive.
Hey, I hope you're enjoying the show. I just wanted to remind you that if you want to sign up to the Flowpoint method, which we have just discussed with Marcus and will keep discussing, you can check it out by going to www.thewaterskipodcast.com/flowpoint method, one word, all lowercase. And you can check out the program there. There's a very cool 3 free days trial that will give you an opportunity to see what the program is all about. And then you can sign up from that link. So again, thewaterskipodcast.com/flowpoint method, one word. We just had a little break here. We're coming back into our conversation. Enjoy.
You were going to get my opinion on something before we had to take a break.
Oh, yeah. So back to this project. So Lake Iseo is pretty interesting, right? Because that's where Christo 4 years ago connected the island to the land with those floating piers. I don't know if you saw the work of art.
I didn't see it.
You look it up afterwards, or floating piers. It was an art exhibition that Christo, the artist, did. Where basically connected through a gigantic floating dock, this big island to the mainland, and then that big island to a smaller island through two floating piers. Beautiful thing. It attracted roughly around 1.3 million people in the span of 20 days, like some ridiculous numbers. And so the area became sort of woke up to tourism, right? Something that lake wasn't that good in the past. And there's a very cool promotion entity that basically has done a superb job showcasing the lake, right? And helping tourism. So my idea was, obviously something like the project I have in mind would give them a shot at, showcasing the lake. So I wonder what my idea, it's kind of like half-baked idea, is I want to contact them and say, hey, can you help me shoot this thing? I don't really don't have much to pay you, but you can use all the footage you want to promote the lake, to promote tourism in the area, but give me the raw footage. And then I'll have someone, that I trust to edit it and put together like a 10 minutes piece.
Yeah, that'd be cool. I think that's a good idea. Figuring out how to crowdsource or, find alternative ways to create the content or to capture the content. So that burden's taken off your shoulders, and then obviously sharing the content, helping them create it and then sharing it. That's kind of the idea I have in mind, because I'm doing it in his honor, and so I want it to be out there somehow. Telling his story, I think it would be a cool, at the beginning, just paint the picture. Who was he? What did he do? Why he is compelling to you, and then going from there. I think we need more of that. Again, our sport at large, at the top level, we miss that. We don't have any of that. I'm in the sport. I'm in the bubble a little bit still, so I kind of know. But most people that are paying attention, that are amateurs, that are students and fans of the sport, they want more of these athletes. They want to know more about them. They want to know where they came from, what they do, and that's why you are creating such a cool thing here at the Water Ski Podcast, because they get to come on and share themselves with the rest of the world, and that is a key thing that we're missing, I think, through film. And that's where I would like to try to do more. Some of the athlete profiles I've done on Flowpoint TV, like the Will Asher thing, or Tony Claridge's
dude, the Will thing. One is, is so well done,
And it's terrible. I watch it now. I mean, the cinematography, like the way I did it, I watch it now and I cringe from the artistic standpoint, but the content side of it, getting exposing Will and having him talk about how he thinks and what life's about and where he's at now. It'd be fun to redo that again. But my point is, we need more of that.
Yep.
I think.
No, I think so too. That's why I'm doing this.
But real stuff like this. It's hard to get the real stuff.
Yeah.
That's what you're doing a killer job of. It's hard to get the real, like, uncanned or unscripted stuff these days.
But do you think it's because I think podcast allows that? It's just a long conversation format. At least that's what I've been sort of doing. But do you think there's more to it? Do you think people are like not used to sharing, or like they're afraid? Like there's something more behind that, or?
I don't know. I think here's my quick take. I think everybody now is camera aware. We're all camera aware. We all think, okay, camera's on. Because we practice with our own phones on social media, doing selfie videos or somebody else videoing us ourselves. We instantly flip a switch and try to become a different version of ourselves when the camera's on than we are just when we're hanging out with our buddies or our family or friends. And so that's just permeated society, I think. So now it's like even harder when a camera is rolling to get people to just be themselves and just to freaking let down and be normal. It's really hard. And, I've had a lot of people, like a couple friends, in the filmmaking world. The guy that got me into drones, Trent Palmer, he reached out a couple of years ago, said, hey, I'm going to start a vlog on YouTube. And, asked me questions about Flowpoint TV because I had a decent following at that time, still do. But he said, when are you going to start doing more vlog style stuff? And I kind of like didn't know how to answer because I thought about it a little bit back then, but it's weird for me to turn the camera on myself because I change. I don't want to change. I just do. I get a little bit more energetic. I try to say the right things. And since then he's gone on and he's got like hundreds of thousands of subscribers on YouTube. He's doing plane stuff and still doing his drone stuff. And I'm stoked for what he's done. And I guess my point is I'm trying to move that direction personally, and I might try to start doing more vlog stuff. But to answer your question, I think it's just, that's what happens nowadays is when the camera is on, people either ball up or they change.
Yeah.
And so the art of it, like what Joe Rogan does, he's doing podcasts, but with video. That's what's compelling to me. That's what I want to do. I want to do podcast plus video. That's what I'm trying to do on, Flowpoint Method is more technical YouTube content, but Flowpoint TV, the show I was doing, I'm going to try to continue that with the video element because I feel like that's where you really get, to your point, this long format stuff is where people can then lose themselves in the conversation and be the real, true version, whatever that means.
Maybe that's what it is. Because I'm thinking back of Rogan, or even just the stuff, you did, say when we were in California last year, or when you came to the California Pro-Am, that feels, unscreened. There's no filter, but again, it's long format. Maybe that's the key.
Yeah.
It's long format.
So okay, here's what it is. I'll take an example from this morning to try to sum up exactly what I think you and I are getting at. I got this new camera. It's called the Wave from Freefly. They make drone stuff. They're up in Washington State. They were actually at Radar Lake a couple of years ago filming with a new gimbal they had and filmed Freddie. Freddie Winter just posted last week some of the footage. Insane stuff that they build. I got a slow-mo camera. I've been trying to get one for 10 years. It's finally affordable. I'm out on my lake this morning watching the sunrise on my dock. It's freezing cold. My hands are numb. I'm waiting for something to happen, hoping that I can capture it. And it made me stop for 5 minutes and just realize, I was like, okay, this is the mode I'm in. Suddenly I can't be on a schedule. I have to just stand here and pay attention and just wait for something to happen. Yeah. I have to wait for the geese to fly off the lake. I have to wait for a blackbird to fly by. I have to wait for a duck to land in front of me. I just have to be available. And I think that's what it takes. And that's what the long format stuff does. And my whole goal is to kind of do that, just like you're doing it, but also be willing to take a moment of that and then package that up and share it in a short, digestible presentation that people can easily click on. It's 5 minutes instead of 55 or an hour and 55. But to get there, just like this morning, you have to just sit with it. You have to just show up and not have an agenda and be willing to have a conversation face to face like we're having right now and wait for the real stuff to come out. Because the real stuff isn't always flashy and it can't be scripted.
No.
This conversation we're having right here, I didn't plan on having this with you, but this is it, dude. This is the real shit. This is what it's about. Like you are a student of the sport. Ever since we first started hanging out, you were on the HO team. You're telling Will and I, like, hey, this is kind of weird. Like, I used to look up to you guys when you were, pros and I was a kid. Like, those were real moments that I'll never forget. And we need more of those in our life. And I think when we're consuming and living more in the virtual world through social media and through YouTube, which I'm a part of, and through television, we forget what it's like to be in the real world. And that's why long form podcasts, I think, is making a comeback or blowing up because it's real.
Yeah.
Because people know it's real. They can tell, crap from diamonds, and they want diamonds. They want real stuff. And that's what this is.
I had a guest, and I won't say who he was because maybe this is a bit of a personal confession, but he basically told me that he realized I was onto something when his parents listened to his interview and said, "That is you."
Yeah.
You know?
Exactly. Yep.
You know, and I think
Exactly.
that's kind of like a metric that I've been keeping, you know. Now, some guests, sometimes I don't know that well, right? But I try to still give them a chance to speak and to express themselves, so that if whoever knows them listens to it, says, okay, yeah, that's her or that's him, you know, that's who they are. Yeah.
It's also contextual too. It's contextual, and it's what the topic matter is. You know, like I was on a podcast a while ago with a friend of mine it's more focused on, you know, it's business focused and career and kind of like, you know, performance related, how to, and in that context, I was more energetic, speaking about, you know, how I approach life, how I got to where I was with water skiing and some of those things that realizations along the way. And in that respect, I'm compressing 30 years into 30 minutes, and I'm presenting it in such a way that it can be valuable and useful. And also I'm presenting it as if this is how I live, but I'm still a normal human being and I still make the same stupid mistakes, and I'm not perfect like I'm making myself sound in that podcast.
Right.
But there's still value in that, you know. And I kind of shared this with my parents, and my parents were educators for 40 years, and they weren't really in the limelight, and they were the most authentic people I probably know. And my I said, hey Dad, I kind of hate this thing where I've got to like play a part. I got to play a character. I got to wear a different hat when I'm in these XYZ situations. And he's like, well, yeah, but there's also, you're doing it for a reason. You're not trying to be somebody else. You're just, that is the best avenue with which to share what you need to share in that context. So it definitely is contextual. When you got 2 minutes on a freaking presidential debate stage to say something, you're going to be a different person than if you get 2 hours in a podcast to say something.
Yeah, for sure. No, context does a lot of that, you know. But I still think that you can stay true to yourself, even if, you know, the context makes you focus in one way or the other, right? I think
True.
You know, and I guess that's in terms of you and I doing, you know, long-winded interviews. I think we've been doing a pretty good job at it, you know.
Yeah, I mean, I could talk technique all day. I could just go deep, but I think people would just get tired of that, you know.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Who knows? Who knows? One thing that bugs you about the sport clearly seems to be whether it is misconceptions or misunderstandings, or, you know, a lack of proper like physical understanding of water skiing. Because I know that we could stay here forever, I'm going to give you another one. I'm going to give you another thing that you wish was better in the sport.
Well, I can say this one because I was there. I still probably am there to some degree. There's people out there that I've left hanging that I haven't gotten back to, fans, people who've reached out, people who have taken the time to take a chance and send an email or a message or a text or whatever, and I haven't replied. And that hangs over me because life gets in the way. It's like the next day. My mom broke her back 11 months ago. People text me the next day. I still haven't gotten back to them. I'm an asshole, literally, for that. You know what I mean? But and I'm working on that. I'm working on being a better version of myself, so that I can, if people take the time to reach out, that I can give them the respect of responding.
Yeah.
And I think in our sport, to bring that to one of the things that bugs me, it's just not entitlement, but the athletes who, we all want the sport to be better. We want all ships to rise at the same time, but we've got to put in a little bit more time. Athletes have to give a little bit more. They have to be willing to dedicate a little bit more time to, you know, showing up, answering questions, or just being real and not expecting that things should be better without putting in a little bit of work. You know what I mean? And that's pretty open-ended, but It's just kind of, it's been a fundamental issue at the athlete level, the pro athlete level, I think, for decades. And it hasn't changed. It's not their fault. They're just following in the footsteps of us and the people who came before. Mm-hmm. So it's just more like, now is the time to make a better future. So
yeah, I think it goes back to what Vincent told me when I interviewed him. I remember asking him, who's the job of promotion of the sport, right? Is it the athletes? Is it the federations? Is it something we don't have? Is it you with the webcast? And he said, it's everyone's job, man. Like we're at a position where everyone should be promoting the sport, right? And I think like he's right, obviously, but then it becomes the question of how you do it, right? And I had my dad here at lunch like last week. Like we often talk about these things because we are water ski fanatics, and he said, well, if everyone taught one person how to ski, there would be double of us, Yep. And that's such a simple way to show that everyone can do, something to improve our sport.
Yeah. And,
when I think about people who have done more than something, obviously you are the one that comes to mind all the time, So I want to thank you a lot for...
Means a lot, dude.
For what you do,
I don't know exactly what all or why, but it just it goes back to my upbringing, my parents, honestly. And I'm not claiming that what you said is true. I don't know if I've done a whole lot. I think if anything, just tried to throw stuff at the wall, see what sticks and see what doesn't stick, and then, adjust accordingly. So
yeah, it takes people to throw stuff at the wall though. And I think you're doing that, and you've done that, and please keep doing it.
The last thing I'll say, I appreciate that, is people like Wade Cox and Bob LaPointe and Camille Duval, and others, Denny Kidder, people who have stayed in the sport and continued to push and continued to be involved and continued to have their hands in the pot in a positive fashion, have inspired me to continue going. Because there was a time where become one of the best in the world, but the sport crumbles. And I'm looking around like, okay, how come Carl didn't stick around? How come Sammy's not here anymore? How come people left?
Yeah.
And I was like, well, I guess that's what you do. I can't remember who it was. I think it was somebody who was in the sport, who had coached me, who ran a collegiate water ski team. At some point, they asked me one day, I remember when it was like mid 2000s, like, well, when are you going to grow up and get a real job? And I was like, well, I just like won a couple events. I still want to see how far I can take this. But from their perspective, it was like, the next thing, move on. It's time to move on. It's time to put your big boy pants on and go get a real job. Yeah. And to me, I see how it's very easy. It would be very easy to just turn your back on the industry because XYZ, because it sucks, because nobody's putting out the effort, because there's no organizing body, because whatever. And some people did, either on purpose or because it was the only thing they had. But to see Bob LaPointe still involved, to see Wade come back around and be interviewing athletes on the dock, on the podcast. That was my childhood idol.
How dope was that?
How dude was
dope was that this year?
Wade has been, he has been a foundation for this sport, whether people like it or not. He's just a character. He's been around forever. He was on TV. He was on ESPN when water skiing was at its height, and he's still here. And to me, things like that cannot be understated. People like those people cannot be overstated how rad that is and how inspiring that is for somebody like me to continue on those hard days when I'm like, I don't want to do anything, but Wade's still doing it, Bob's still doing it. And you know what? Carl, I got to talk to Carl and Sammy, and they're back. they're back in their own ways. Sammy was around when we were developing the new ProStar back in 2012, 2013. Sammy showed up to the testing days. He listened. He was humble. He gave his input. Carl literally told me, like, I could sense the remorse in him leaving the sport and forget, and not in a bad way. Just he said it in a good way. He was like, I didn't realize how important the people were in my life that I had in my life from water skiing until I left water skiing. And so even though those folks did leave that I talked about earlier, they're back in some way. Scotty Clack, freestyle jumper, he's back. He's still involved. He's at Roswell. They're still in the industry in some way, or they're rediscovering the industry. And you know what that tells me? It just tells me everything. It tells me what I already know, what I feel intrinsically, and what you talked about, and what we all know, people who are listening to this. We have something special. It's not about the act of skiing. It's about the community, first and foremost. The act of skiing, when we have a great ski day, that's kick-ass. That makes us feel we ride that high as long as we can ride it. When we have bad ski days, we still have something. We have our friends, we have our family, we have the community, and we have something to look forward to, another good ski day. So we have something here. Those guys prove it to me that they're still around, they're still involved. And I hope I can be like them when I grow up. And I feel fortunate to not have had to grow up. I mean, get the engineering degree and not really have to use it, and to get to play around with film, and to get to play around with coaching skiers, and to get to continue to follow passions. Sometimes I feel a little guilty, but at the same time, I feel like everybody can lean a little bit more into their passions and the things that fire them up as an individual. And they may be surprised at where it takes them. So.
Yeah. No, I feel the same way, personally, so I've just started a new journey, and I keep hearing even from other skiers, like, hey, when are you gonna, get to the city and do some work? I'm like, why would I, why would I?
You're doing it. You're doing what you need to be doing right now.
Exactly. I know.
The last thing I'll say, and this is totally, over the top, nothing to do with water skiing, but I feel like with social media, with all the media out there and all the white noise, everybody is compelled to form these self-images or these ideas of themselves, these concepts of themselves based on what other people tell them about themselves. And I'm guilty of it too. We're all guilty of it. There's no escaping the reality that you are defined by both what you think you are and what other people tell you that you are, whether that's good, bad, or indifferent. And I think what skiing does for us is it gives us a reprieve from everything, and it allows us to go out and just find a feeling, find a moment in time where nobody's telling us who we are, what we are, how we should act. We just get to go express ourselves on a ski, hanging onto a rope, push some water around, and that's what it's all about. And that refills your cup so that then you can start to pull back in life. This is my take, at least. Pull back in life and realize, all right, I got to find my own path. I got to find my own passions. I got to find what fires me up, and then continue to push in those directions, like you have, to find things that you can do that provide value, beyond what you thought you could do, and that hopefully lead to something more. I think, and here I am again on my high horse, but that's I think what's happening here. So stoked to be on the podcast, stoked to be a part of it.
Well, I'm stoked to have you, man. Like, I love this. We just decided to have a conversation, no notes, nothing, no idea what we were going to talk about. And I really think it came out great, possibly because of that, which goes against a lot of the things I do, which I'm a little bit more planning. Although for people who listen to this often, they might be surprised about this, but I do tend to plan. But I found that with conversations like this, it's a bad strategy. So,
well, yeah, I will tell you, I don't think there's one right way. You know that. So Oftentimes, planning helps, but also the universe is a wild place, and you've got to be willing to go with the flow, literally.
Yeah,
wherever it takes you.
And yeah, with combos, it looks like it works pretty well. Well, Marcus, thank you so much. Let's do it again whenever you want, man. Like I'm honored you decided to spend a couple of hours with me.
We need to get on with Jenny. I know you and her could plan some cool stuff, and you guys could stay on script and keep it tight. And also, she could probably teach folks a few things about their bodies.
Let's do it.
Sports specific fitness. So
yeah, let's do it for sure. Yeah, no, I know. Cool. We'll make it happen. Thanks, buddy.
Right on. Thanks, buddy. Thank you.